Hello, welcome to our presentation on poverty vehicle tows. My name is Justin Small, and I am a staff attorney with Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County. Before we begin, a brief disclaimer. This presentation is intended to provide general legal information and education only. It is not intended to be taken as legal advice or to establish a lawyer-client relationship. This presentation is also specific to the laws and regulations of the state of California at the time it was recorded, which is November of 2024. Going over our agenda, we're first going to talk about poverty tows, how they differ from other types of vehicle tows. Next, we're going to talk about the vehicle tow timelines and all of your associated rights as it relates to vehicle tows. And finally, we're going to talk about vehicle tow hearings, what to expect, what the standards are, and what the outcomes can be based on what happens. So first, let's talk about what is a poverty tow. So there are a variety of reasons why a vehicle could be towed in the state of California. Most commonly, we would say private tows, which are when you are parked and your vehicle is on private property in excess of the permission of the property owner. So you're parked somewhere on someone's private property, not allowed to be there. That property owner can order your vehicle towed. Another common situation is when you're parked in public, but you're also not lawfully parked. So maybe parked in front of a fire hydrant or a safety corridor or a place in which you're not allowed to be. Those are not poverty tows because a poverty tow is a situation in which your vehicle is lawfully parked, but you're not in compliance with some other law of the state of California. And it's generally going to be connected to issues of poverty, which is why it's called a poverty tow. So the most common examples you'll see are being parked on a public street for more than 72 hours. So yes, even if you're lawfully parked, but your vehicle is in the same place for more than 72 hours, it can be eligible to be towed. And then also having your vehicle registration expired for more than 6 months is actually probably the most common poverty tow we see in the state. So when we think about it, with our vehicles, our back license plate, we have our registration stickers indicating the year of our registration and then the month at which it expires. So even as you're driving by, you can calculate and see if somebody's registration is expired for more than 6 months just by that sticker. So if that's the case, any law enforcement official can actually order your vehicle towed. For a list of the 23 most common reasons for vehicle tows, you can see the California Vehicle Code section 22651, and that's going to be relevant in a moment when we talk about vehicle tow notices. So, the vehicle has been towed. What happens next? The most important thing to take from this presentation is that vehicle tows can be very expensive and a time-sensitive matter. So the first thing that's going to happen, obviously, is that your vehicle will be taken away by a private tow company generally, because even if it's ordered to be towed by a law enforcement agency or by a municipality, they still have contracts with private tow yards. And that's where the vehicle, both the people are going to come take it and then also where it's going to be stowed is at a private tow facility. So there's going to be the costs associated with the tow itself, the mechanical devices that tow your vehicle, as well as the labor costs of the person doing the tow. But then there will also be processing and storage fees associated with having your vehicle at the tow yard. And unfortunately, for every day that your vehicle is stored at the tow yard, it's going to accrue a daily storage fee. And so what this means is that the longer that your vehicle is in the tow yard and it is stored, the more expensive it's going to be to get it out. Unfortunately, too, if your vehicle is in the tow yard for more than 30 days, it is eligible to be sold at a lien sale. So this means that the tow yard can actually take title to your vehicle and sell it to the highest bidder. And if that amount that it is sold for is less than what you owe the tow yard, they can also then send that extra amount of whatever's left over into collections. So again, vehicle tows, very expensive, very time sensitive, because more than a month past, you might actually lose your vehicle at a lien sale. And so, regardless of whether or not you want to contest or you think you have the ability to maybe win an administrative hearing, the best advice is to try to get it out as soon as possible, because even if you are going to contest and take an administrative hearing related to the tow, you can still get it out and then try to seek reimbursement for what you've already paid, as opposed to just leaving it there if you are able to. Now, again, it obviously is not everyone able to afford that, but if possible, always best to get it out first because you just don't want it to become more and more expensive. So let's talk about our rights as it relates to vehicle tows. First and foremost, you have the right to notice. So, maybe you're in a situation where you are physically present when your vehicle has been towed. You might actually receive that notice right then and there. But most cases, you might leave your vehicle parked somewhere and come back and find that it is gone. You may not know where it has gone and who has towed it and what the reasons for. You have that right to notice, and that notice needs to be sent to you within 48 hours of the towing, excluding holidays and weekends. But so So one of the things to note about this is that the vehicle notice for the tow is going to go to the address at which your vehicle is registered with the DMV. So it is best practices to make sure that you always update your vehicle address for wherever your registration, whenever you move. You want to make sure that the DMV has that up-to-date address and all notices and all information is being sent, because as we've talked about, this being such a time-sensitive issue, getting that notice as soon as it's been issued and mailed to you is essential. Once you receive the notice, you have the right to request an administrative hearing. Must be made within 10 days of the tow or receiving notice of the tow. That's going to be on the notice itself, both your right to request the hearing and how many days you have and what that kind of calculation is. If you do not request the hearing within 10 days, it will be deemed waived and you will not be able to go back and have that hearing. Once you make the request, you have a right to a speedy hearing, which is generally within 2 business days of the request. And if you succeed in your hearing, you can have all associated towing and storage fees waived. So let's talk more about the vehicle tow notice. As we said, it must be sent within 48 hours, excluding holidays and weekends, and it can be either mailed or personally delivered. So you might receive it right then and there if it's being written up by the person doing the tow, or might be mailed after the fact and mailed to the address on file with the DMV for your vehicle. The notice itself must include information about the agency responsible for the tow and the location of where the vehicle is being stored. It has to provide the authority and purpose of the tow, and the rights that we just discussed, the rights to request a hearing and the deadline to do so. So what's most important about this, both for keeping the document for just any reason for posterity purposes, is that authority and purpose part is going to be essential, because it's going to list 9 times out of 10 the California Vehicle Code section. It's going to be the authority for the tow. It's going to list that on the notice. And so, like I said, it's really good idea to then go and look at that statute, go look up that California Vehicle Code section to see exactly what the statute says about the authority to tow, what the elements of it are. And so if you're going to take this hearing, your job then is to show why those elements have not been met. So for example, if your vehicle was towed because of expired registration, you need to show that your vehicle registration was not expired. Maybe there was some sort of issue where the sticker had come off, or you have proof that you have gotten it since reinstated. And so these are the kind of things you need to think about. And the notice is going to give you that clue of why it was towed and what the next steps are. These are 2 examples. This is a vehicle report on the left here. I believe it's the California Highway Patrol, but they look very similar across all different law enforcement agencies. It's going to give the status of the vehicle at the time it was towed. And on the right here is going to be the notice of stored vehicle that we were just talking about. The storage authority is going to be the vehicle code section, which in this case is on the far right. And it's also going to give an inventory of the status of the car. So best practices are always to keep copies of all documents that are received, because it will be relevant at the hearing. So the tow hearing itself, as we said, you have 10 days to request it from receipt of notice or from the date of the tow. And the standard of review, so this, just for reference, this is an administrative hearing. It's not going to be heard in court, not a traffic court matter. This is going to be heard at the agency which effectuated the tow. So if it, for example, let's say it was a tow authorized by the Los Angeles Police Department, they have hearing officers at the Los Angeles Police Department, and you would then be going to the LAPD office to have your hearing. Same is true of any city. And the hearing officers, the standard that they're going to be looking for is whether or not the agency had reasonable grounds for the tow. Now, unfortunately, reasonable grounds is a very low standard. So in these poverty tow situations, it's going to be a pretty simple question of, just as we're talking about, was the registration expired for more than 6 months? Was the vehicle parked in the same public street for more than 72 hours? If so, there's a very high likelihood that the tow will be upheld because the grounds are reasonable. But when thinking about tows and whether or not it makes sense to request a hearing, if you have any facts or evidence to show that they did not have reasonable grounds, that would be the basis to show why the tow was unlawful. After your hearing, the officer, you have, if you win, your car will be released and all fines and fees will be waived associated with the tow. If you lose, you're going to be responsible for all fees and the vehicle will not be released until they're paid. In some circumstances, you can also tie, which means that the agency may waive certain fees, like perhaps if there was maybe an issue with the notice, they send it to the wrong address and they're willing to waive a certain number of days that the vehicle was stored, but they're not willing to find that the grounds weren't reasonable. They might knock off some of the storage fees or some of the processing fees, but not all of them. It's a rare situation, but it does happen. Finally, if you are unhappy with the outcome of the hearing, you do have the ability to appeal it in court. But again, because of the time sensitivity, it can be very difficult because the vehicle can be sold, again, within 30 days. So I think the biggest takeaway about vehicle tows is both being aware of the fact that your vehicle can be towed for these sort of poverty reasons. And so the best practices are trying to make sure that you do not give any reasons for your vehicle to be towed, keeping your registration up to date, making sure that you're always parking in places you're allowed to be and not leaving your vehicle in the same space for too long of time. And if your vehicle then unfortunately is towed, prioritizing trying to get it out as quickly as possible. And, if it makes sense to request a hearing, doing so, but making sure that you are trying to do all that's in your power to prevent it from becoming more expensive and acting as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for watching this presentation.